Welcome back to Superliminal, and I want to start today by letting you know that today's guest, Marc Peycker, is offering a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to swim with dolphins and to see whales off the beautiful island of Madeira, which is a Portuguese territory, which is an island in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Morocco. So if you see this before early November of 2024, and you've always wanted to swim with dolphins and whale watch, and feel the deeper connection that we have to our cetacean family and experience an incredible 4 or 5 day retreat, then please do contact Marc on his email address, which I will put at the top of the show notes and the show description. It's something that I would have loved to have gone on myself, but unfortunately existing commitments mean that I can't. But if you're in a position to, and it's something that really makes you lean in, contact Marc now if you hear this before early November of 2024, because it's going to be it is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So that said, my guest is of course Marc Peycker, and we have a fabulous conversation about his journey through life and his unexpected path to becoming a dolphin coach, whisperer and facilitator. It's such an incredible conversation because Marc's got this incredible degree of wisdom about the origins of how the Earth has been set up over hundreds of thousands of years, which I've heard many other researchers, credible researchers, say the same thing, backed up by historical evidence, both architecturally and in terms of ancient texts as well. And as you may have heard from some of the other conversations, we are being siphoned for low vibration energy. And Marc talks very eloquently about how that was set up, the background and why, but most importantly, how we as infinite, immortal, creator beings connected to the trueness of our heart soul essence, who only want what's real and really want to live a life in the natural way of love and the natural way of life, then this is the conversation for you. It's quite a long one compared to usual, but honestly, stay tuned because it's magical. So once again, Marc's retreat is from the 4th to the 8th of November 2024 to swim with dolphins and to watch whales. So if you see this and you're interested, please do contact him now because he has a small handful of spaces left. But for now, enjoy the conversation and see you soon. Welcome back to Superliminal, everyone. Bit of a different background surrounding for me today, but that doesn't take anything away from the magic of today's guest. You'll have seen in the intro video that I did that Marc is doing something really exceptional and very, very different. And I'm really hoping that loads of people are going to watch this, see that and go, really? But lean in and watch this anyway, because honestly, the wisdom that Marc has got to share is going to be something else. So as I always say, strap in, get the popcorn out, and let's go for the ride. So Marc, it is wonderful. This is, of course, Marc Peycker. He told me how to say it in French, and I just couldn't do it. So we're going for Marc Peycker.
I was kind of expecting that, frankly.
Yeah. Even though I've studied a bit of French and I can speak sort of survival French, I'm embarrassed to say I couldn't get it.
But I can say Franco.
But he can say my name properly. So Marc, again, as you'll have seen from the intro video, Marc is a dolphin coach, teacher, and public speaker. I mean, that in and of itself, if that doesn't make you lean in, then I don't know what will. But that said,
I do have an even fancier expression, Franco. I like to call myself an interspecies bridge maker.
Ooh, I wish I'd thought of that one before before we started recording. That is amazing because seriously speaking, for a moment, that's probably actually closer to the core essence of what it is you do. So, yeah, Marc, thank you ever so much for coming on to Superliminal at short notice. It's wonderful to have you here. And I'm very sure that our audience is really looking forward to hearing from you. So why don't we go back to the very beginning from when Marc decided to incarnate in this life and tell us about the journey that got you to where you are now and this fascinating work that you're doing with our cetacean family.
Well, I was born and bred in Belgium, which is not where I currently live, because I live in Algarve, which is the very south of Portugal, on the shore of the Atlantic Ocean. But I was born in under much rainier skies. You know what I'm talking about, Franco.
Living in the UK, absolutely yes.
Well, believe it or not, Belgium is worse for that matter.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So I was born in a very mainstream. I'm not going to say ordinary because that doesn't mean anything, and it can be interpreted in a kind of a demeaning way. A very mainstream, average, and again, I'm not saying average in any kind of belittling way for my parents. Average family, lower middle class. My father was a primary school teacher, and my mother was working in a paperwork shop in Brussels. And I spent actually most of my life in Belgium. So I have a sister. And as I grew up, in a way, I was a little bit of a disappointment for my father because my sister was born first. And my father really wanted to have a boy because my father was very much into sports and he wanted a boy to play sports with. And that didn't really turn out to be who I was. I really wasn't into sports. I actually wasn't that much into physical activity at all because I had trouble reconciling myself with the incarnation process. So I invested a lot in the mental sphere, the intellectual sphere. So I was very efficient at school. So that was good compensation for him, because at least he got to be proud of my achievements, I suppose you might say. And he was always, the man, you could see that he always had that feeling of nagging betrayal. Whenever I wouldn't be top of the top of the classroom in any matter, that was always so horrible for him. Okay, so that really was the first part of my life. I had the usual school curriculum ending at university. Uni time felt very liberating for me because I was so fed up with the close surveillance that you can experience as a teenager, the feeling of containment and constriction that you can experience in high school. I was so fed up with that the first years of university felt like a big liberation. You're master over your own schedule. You show up or you don't. Nobody cares, and you're being how would I say, drowned in a in a sea of other students, in a big auditorium. So that definitely felt much better. Now things took a turn during my last year, and I was studying law, by the way. I was studying law, which definitely wasn't any passion of mine in any way, shape, or form. It was just a sort of convenient matter to study because I really hadn't any idea about what I wanted to do afterwards. And there was that saying in French, le droit mène à tout, which means law leads you to everything, which is debatable, but that's how the saying goes. So during my last year, I had my first spiritual awakening episode. I came across a book. In fact, I was in exam period, and I remember I was in a tramway, and I opened the newspaper, and I saw that there was going to be an interview of a lady on that evening who had actually had that book published. She was an elderly Hungarian lady, and the title of the book was Talking with Angels. And it was the experience of a group of 4 friends during World War II, during a very dramatic period when the Nazis were in power in Hungary, and the German army was present. And one of the, no, not one, three of these 4 friends happened to be Jews. So during that period of intense, dramatic external pressure, they decided that they were going to go, the 4 of us, in an isolated house on the countryside and try to make some sort of spiritual breakthrough. They had been into spirituality and studying various spiritual traditions, but that breakthrough happened. That breakthrough happened, and they connected. The way I'm reading it nowadays, with everything I know, is that they connected with their own greater beings that they called angels. But as these communications were progressing, some kind of interference took place. And they actually got, in a way, from my perspective, they got partially hijacked by the angelic worlds, who wanted to have their say and have their energies be present in these communications. And because of these 4 friends' belief systems and the way they had been brought up in religious traditions, they were vulnerable to that kind of interference, because even though they all had left their families' religious behind, they were not into dogmatic religion anymore, but we have been marinating in that religious environment for so long, for several millennia, incarnation after incarnation, and our ancestors have been marinating in that religious ecosystem for so long that it is embedded and imprinted into our genes. So even if intellectually speaking, we've left that baggage behind, and I'm so beyond that. We're still vulnerable to it, and that's how you can see at a political level regimes that are supposed to be completely atheistic, like the old communist regimes, for instance. In many ways, they functioned like religions, like theocracies. They functioned like theocracies because everything was based on dogma. Because Karl Marx was the prophet, and he had his disciples. He had his disciples, and there was a sacred book called Das Kapital, and everything derived from the sacred book, and then from the holy predication of Vladimir Lenin. And you could see whenever they had celebrations, there were these gigantic portraits of the great founding fathers who looked like deities. And I know for a fact that many people in the Russian countryside, they had little altars, and instead of having the old religious icons, they had a portrait of Stalin. And they were literally praying Stalin for blessings, literally. So, and some, yeah. So definitely, Stalin was very much a living god, a vengeful god, and a frightful one. But yeah, religious has really done a number on us. So. To go back to Talking with Angels, that was my very first and very powerful breakthrough. And after that, I entered the New Age scene, and I was in the New Age ecosystem for quite a while. So I've been around the block. I've seen a lot, and I've been exposed to a lot of the pitfalls of spirituality. By the way, I also had a Catholic upbringing to an extent. My parents were not practicant. Do you say that practicant? Is that the
Protestant?
word? No,
Protestant?
someone who practices their religion. How do you call these people?
Yeah, just practicing. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were not practicing Catholics, but my father's aunt was a nun. And so in order to make her happy, I had to have my communion, and so I had to get some upbringing in order to be able to receive that holy sacrament. So, and of course, I had been baptized. I was certainly not going to escape that one with my father's aunt. I was never not going to be baptized. So, where was I going? I had been exposed to the pitfalls of religion, and then to the pitfalls of the particular version of spirituality that we call New Age, and which I now consider to be another religion, but a very sophisticated one, a very flexible, extremely flexible one. So the way I see it, New Age is the religious framework that's been designed to recapture the people who were ready to leave behind the old dogmatic religions. So instead of a dogmatic religion, you have one that is very flexible, very fluid, and that actually aims to aggregate and integrate a little bit of everything of the old belief systems into a gigantic hodgepodge where everyone can find something they will like, because there are elements of truth in every religion. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any appeal. So that's how these spiritual entrapments work. You take elements of truth in order to draw people in, because we resonate to truth at the core level. And then around that core of truth, you wrap your web of lies that is going to stick around people like a spider web and totally entangle them. And that's also, in my view, how New Age works. It's just that it is much more difficult to perceive because you don't have that heavy feeling of containment and constriction and tyranny weighing upon you.
Yeah,
Because
it's much less dogmatic on the surface level, isn't it, Mark? So I can absolutely see why that would be true.
yeah, it's like you were in a prison cell, and all of a sudden someone came with a magic wand and waved the wand, and the walls went further apart. They got so much further apart that you couldn't even see them anymore, but they're still there.
That's a great metaphor. Yeah, I love that.
If you walk long enough, you're going to bump into the wall. So that was my experience for quite a while in terms of my spiritual path. And then at some point, I met a lady who became my teacher for, I believe, close to 7 years. And she was the next level. She was the next level in terms of spiritual pitfalls. Because she really looked like she was slaughtering all of the sacred cows of spirituality, including all of the New Age sacred cows, with extraordinarily advanced and deep and sophisticated mystical knowing and deep access to reality. So it took me a while. It took me a while to perceive that something was off, because it was so darn seductive, and you were made to feel so darn special. And it was such a cozy little tribe, little nest that she had built for you. And she was very charismatic, very impressive, because she could speak, I don't even know how many mystical languages spontaneously. So that makes quite an impression on you, when someone is just starting to speak an unknown language, and then she can shift to another and another and another and another. And she was functioning like a factory in terms of mystical tools and approaches and methods and modalities. And she was spending all her times creating new healing methods, new yogas, new online courses, new sets of wheels, and it was never stopping. And that was actually part of the entrapment that I started to get really uncomfortable at some point, which was that you would never get a moment of pause. There was always the shiny new stuff,
So no time to really integrate what you'd learned.
Exactly, and no time to take a step back. It was this constant whirlwind of novelty, of exciting novelty and never seen before in the universe, and going to change the entire cosmos and and that sort of thing. So, but there were some really core elements of truth that I'm somehow have stayed with me in the understanding of the world and the universe and reality that is mine now, with all the distortions, my time with her actually prepared me for the experience that is mine now and the understanding that is mine now. But the really big twist that I eventually became aware of is that she was, without ever saying it, she was positioning herself to her community as the source of existence. No, the source of everything, that she called the embodiment of the infinite. And it was like, guys, are you going to get it at some point? You know, wink, wink. Do you realize who is the embodiment of the infinite? It was never said. It was never said, you know. But many people along the way got it. Oh. And because she was projecting that at a subtle level as well, people who were sensitive enough to perceive it were getting, you know, visions of it. You know, the Holy Mother. Oh wow! And you know, and I am one of the few. So there was actually a truth to that as well. There's a truth to that as well, because there is a group of beings who are the most ancient co-creators of this universe and this galaxy and this planet. And that is something that I really experience as true. And she was presenting a version of that. You know, she was calling these beings the ancient ones. And she was telling us that those who were attracted to her teachings, they were all part of these ancient ones. But the twist and the trap was that the ancient ones were the inner circle, you know, the first circle of the embodiment of the infinite. And she was the embodiment of the infinite. And she had created the ancient ones first, before anything else. In fact, it was even more sophisticated than that, because she wouldn't say created, she would say expressed. You know, expressed as parts of herself. So, yeah, it was really interesting. It was really interesting. And it took me quite a while after I left that community to get closure at an energetic level, really complete closure. Because
it sounds like she was, although she was doing it very much akin. I was feeling the parallel of the false god matrix when you were sharing that, Mark.
Yeah.
But that said, clearly she was genuinely, energetically, and psionically a powerful being.
Yeah, yeah, and it is actually something that is much more common than people realize. There are literally hundreds and maybe thousands of people alive at the moment who share that delusion that they are the source of existence. And the entities who are using them as a middle man or middle woman to harvest energy, you know, they are juicing them up. They are giving them extra power and extra. What's the word I'm looking for? They are amplifying. They are amplifying the abilities of these people. So she was a powerful being by herself, I would say. She was. But she was getting extra juice from the ones who were pulling their strings. And also the focus, from all the focus of all her students, because that's how it worked. All these students constantly focused on them because there is that constant output of new material. So in order to keep up, you have to follow her every day of your life. Oh, here is the new insight, here is the new material, here is the new this, here is the new that. So there is that constant focus, and all that concentration of devotion that is being harvested. So part of it stays to empower the person, the individual, and the rest is being harvested by the puppet masters. Because that's the name of the game. Harvesting energy is the name of the game. It's what religions are made for. It's what the entertainment industry is made for, with the stars, the movie stars, the music stars. It's what the sports industry is made for, with the games. All that energy being poured into the games, into the match, into the players. Where do you think all that energy is going? You think it's dissipating into the ethers? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It is being harvested. And all the worship that is directed to royalty, and all the various types of worship that exist, all of that is going somewhere, and the human beings who are the focus of all that devotion, they are just intermediaries. They are just middle persons.
Yeah, I agree. I had, as you know, Mark, I had Rebecca Barron on Superliminal recently, and her story highlighted that exactly. And it also put me in mind of, you will probably have seen, there's a fairly recent film, I watched it about 2 years ago, a film called Jupiter Rising.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a documentary. It's not a film. Very much like the first Matrix movie in particular, it's a documentary. It's not a film, but it highlights exactly that, as Robert Monroe, who created the Monroe Institute, has always said, it's a louche farm. It's to create louche, which is this adoration, this worship, this taking the power away from ourselves and giving it to a parasitic, often unseen, non-human, energetic entity that needs to feed from it. Because as human beings, and as I've come to understand recently, we are full fractal expressions of the whole universe. So our adulation and our worship is particularly rich and particularly potent for these parasitic, non-human entities who use that as a food source. And if anybody hasn't seen Jupiter Rising, what we're saying will make sense on a deeper level if you watch that great movie. And to explain this, I do highly recommend it.
Yeah, this is actually exposed in multiple works of fiction. Jupiter Ascending is one. The later seasons of the series Stargate SG-1 are another example, where there was that group of beings called the Ori, who were abstract beings, beyond the physical level of life, who were doing exactly that, harvesting the energies of their devotees through a religion, through priests, through a book. The Book of Origin was their sacred scriptures, their holy scriptures that they had created in order to establish the dogma of their religion, which was providing them with the energies they were gulping. And they were a very conquering bunch. They would not hesitate to send armies if the new planet they were targeting were reluctant to welcome their priests. then they would send starships and armies. But yeah, so that's another example. The Golden Compass series of books, and the also the TV series, the movie and the TV series, The Golden Compass, is about that as well, about who the God entity is. And a recent one, same theme again, is a series you can see on Netflix at the moment called Chaos.
Yeah,
Chaos.
I'm about halfway through that, and I cannot agree more. Yeah, it really does emphasize
Yeah.
the truth of this in film form, but again, it's just absolutely mirroring the truth of what is going on to humanity. And there was one that, it's about Empire. Is it called? No, it's not called Empire. There's 2 seasons, and there's a third one coming out. George Cavassalas.
I see what you mean. It's
Shared it.
Foundation.
Foundation. Oh my goodness. And again, to anybody watching, if you've not seen Foundation, in terms of what Mark is sharing, and the parasitic and insecure presentation of imperial control that we experience here on this planet, I cannot recommend Foundation enough as well. I mean, I was gutted when the second series finished, and there is a third one incoming apparently, but it highlights that, I think, so powerfully.
And this is a really very key point to understand in order to read the play of what's been happening to us over the last few millennia, which is that many people understand the concept of loosh and energy harvesting. But usually the way they view it is that, there are all these demonic entities and races who want to harvest our fear and our anger and resentment and hatred. And yes, that's a reality. What they don't realize is how much devotional energies and worship, which are distortion of love, are being harvested to feed the very top of the parasitic food chain and predatory food chain, which are entities that we traditionally have been calling the gods. And these guys are the one really calling the shots. And not just via demonic races that we would consider demonic, but also races that we would label, call, and consider angelic, because their empire has 2 sides and 2 poles. It's a little bit like good cop, bad cop, you know? There is basically the reality that they have created is highly artificial. It can be called synthetic. It's like a sort of hologram superimposed on the more foundation level of reality that is the natural order of life. Superimposed over that foundation, you have the hologram of the gods. It doesn't cover everything, just a portion of the universe. But their hologram is made of 2 sides, 2 poles, which is synthetic dark and synthetic light. Because in this universe, we have light and dark, In nature, we have light and dark. And dark, at its core, dark is not evil. Dark is challenging. Dark is providing challenges and resistance to our creational drive, our creational impulses. And through these challenges, it helps us to grow and evolve and become even better, more refined, more sophisticated, more proficient creator beings. Whereas the synthetic version of dark is what we call evil. It is malevolent, it is corrupt, it is cruel, sadistic, all of these wonderful things. And the synthetic version of light is self-righteous and sanctimonious, holier than thou, full of superiority, and using a lot of what psychologists call passive aggressiveness. Meaning that if you deviate from what they have defined for you as the right path and the right attitude, they're not going to scold you, but they're going to give you the cold shoulder instead, to make you understand that you're not supposed to do that and you'd rather fall in line. Otherwise, you won't get the goodies anymore. And what are the goodies? Well, they're blessings. They're blessings that they give you with the energy that you have poured into their reservoirs with your devotion and your prayers and your supplications. Like beggars, Oh, please protect me, take care of me, give me this, give me that. Yeah, sure. But you give us your love first, and we'll give you crumbs. We'll take everything you have poured into our system, into our hierarchy, into our empire. We'll save a few crumbs to give you in order to validate the belief systems that we have indoctrinated you with. That's how it works.
Yeah. It's so frustrating and sad and infuriating in equal measure as well, Mark, because, I look at people who share stories with me about situations like this and have this hopelessness of what can I do? And I look into their hearts, and sometimes I even say this to them, whether they can feel it on a conscious level or not. And I'll say, if only you knew how powerful you really are. If only you knew who and what you really are. And I love David Icke's expression. I went to see him on Friday. It was absolutely amazing. And in terms of who we are, his expression is, we are a unique expression of all that is, has been, and can ever be, having a brief human experience that can never be created, was never created, and can never be destroyed. But yet, as you just mentioned, people have been so shrunken down and subdivided and made to feel small and helpless and little me and what can I do and apathetic and I'm not good enough and lacking and I need a savior, that it just breaks my heart sometimes because again, I look at people and I can feel the light inside them. I can feel the core essence. I can feel the magic waiting for a crack to get out so that they can get a glimpse of the light that's already inside them. But you got to hand it to these psychopaths. I think you mentioned this earlier, that, they have done they're really good at what they do. These parasites. They are the best, the best marketers. I've got to hand it to them. But it's time for humanity. It's time for individuals and then us collectively as one interconnected global human consciousness to start remembering who we are. And I think that, I feel here that slowly but surely that's not just beginning to happen, but that is beginning to accelerate as well. As I talk about the morphogenetic field all the time that Rupert Sheldrake mentions. And I think that's really starting to happening on pace, but we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. So let's go back to where you were when you left that lady. You saw her for who she was, and you mentioned then that it took you some time to not just see through that, but to begin to sort of heal inside the trauma that you'd unsuspectingly experienced as you were going through that process. So what happened next?
Yeah, in fact, leaving that ecosystem felt very liberating at the time. But as I said, it took a while. It took a while to make closure on all levels because there were so many attachments, so many sticky attachments, and she doesn't let go easily. No, it's like an abusive mother, but at an energetic level, you know. And in my case, also like a spouse who wouldn't let go of you, because yeah, we had past life history as well. So journey with the distorted feminine and all that. But I had a few years after that. I had a few years where I was, it was a transition period for me. You know, I was looking for an approach I would fully resonate with. And I was looking at the very broad, diverse offer that is present on the market in terms of spirituality. And nothing was really strongly resonating until maybe 3 years or so, after leaving my super duper mystical spiritual teacher / embodiment of the infinite.
You mean the Holy Mother herself?
The Holy Mother herself, holy moly, guacamole. So, as I shared with you, I happened to watch a video on YouTube about some guy in Australia who was making a presentation in Sydney. A guy with a Greek name called George Kavasilas. And I had an instant feeling of recognition of his energy and his presence. And everything he was saying was making complete sense to me. Now, I was resonating with the insights he was sharing and the knowledge he was sharing. And everything felt true. Everything felt true. And I couldn't find any of the distortions that I had been exposed to before on my spiritual path since I had started that journey in my early 20s. So a few months later, I went to California. I went to California to participate in the 5-day workshop, George's 5-day workshop called Transcending the God Matrix. And I guess the meaning of that is pretty self-explanatory. And he launched an online community shortly after that, which I've been a member since. And this has been very helpful and supportive to me in George's work is like a doorway, because he's not, unlike my previous teacher, he's not in the business of constantly producing new stuff. He's giving you a doorway. And once you enter and you are on the other side, you get to discover who you are and what your approach is going to be and how you are going to contribute to the process of liberation of humanity and of the planet from the grip of the forces of limitation, and particularly the grip of the dark cabal. And that is what has happened to me. And also, I have done a lot of work. I have done a lot of work with a few friends to dismantle as much as possible of the layers of imposition that we have, because, okay, I want to backtrack a little bit here. I want to
Sure.
backtrack a little bit because you shared something that is really crucial, really, really crucial to the understanding of what's going on for humanity and why we are in the predicament that we find ourselves in at the moment. So, the human species, to be more specific, Earth humanity, because the human type didn't start here. There were earlier versions of humans in this galaxy. So, Earth humanity, contrary to what appearances might suggest, is the cutting edge of universal evolution. It is the most powerful species that exist in this universe. And people who are into information regarding extraterrestrial species and civilizations might take exception to what I'm saying here. They could say, yeah, look, all these guys, you know, what they can do, the abilities they have, the knowledge they have, the technology they have. How can you say that we are more advanced and more powerful than they are? Well, when I say advanced, I'm not speaking in technological terms. I'm speaking in terms of spiritual evolution. And what is really important to understand is how diminished we have been. Because as a species, we have been on the receiving end of the most intense, the most prolonged, and the most sophisticated attack and enslavement tactics that this universe has ever seen. What we have to deal with here exists nowhere else in the universe in such a concentration and with such an intensity.
Yeah. From every single area of what it means to exist on our beautiful planet that herself has
Yeah.
also had her femininity distorted.
Yeah. Now, the question is why? Why have we been attacked so much? And why has there been such a focus on reducing us to our current state? And even in this reduced state, we are still the most powerful species of the universe. It's just that we don't know how to use our power. So others use it because we don't know how to use it, mostly. When humanity emerged on planet Earth, the gods who had been kept in the dark, so to speak, about what was going on here, what was transpiring, all of a sudden realized what was going on. It's as if a cloak had been lifted and all of a sudden they could see all of the energy lines of the entire cosmos converging on this area, converging to this planet. And when they had that realization, they were pretty incensed that this could happen behind their back. But after that initial reaction, they could see that there was a huge opportunity for them.
And Mark, Just to interject for a moment, when you say gods, just to be clear, what do you mean
Mhm.
by that?
So the gods are, you might say, abstract entities who exist in the realms of consciousness primarily. Uh, they also exist, beyond the realms of consciousness, but they have their primary focus of expression in the realms of consciousness. Consciousness being universal mind energy. So they are not the most, contrary to what they always try to have us believe. They're not the most elevated, expanded, the deepest beings of the universe. They cannot go beyond the upper levels of the fourth dimension. In fact, that's their primary ecosystem. It's the upper octaves of the fourth dimension. And their focus is on power. All of their existence is focused on power. And that sort of attitude, which really is a form of insanity, uh, at its root comes from a very deep insecurity.
Yeah. And would you say they are both incarnate and both physical and non-physical, basically, as well?
Yeah, they can take a shape. They can take a shape that they make look very beautiful in in the fourth dimension. Some of them can incarnate, and it's not something they like doing very much because incarnation can be pretty tricky. It can be rough. It can be rough depending on what world you are incarnating on and what reality you are incarnating in. It can get pretty rough, and the whole point of their whole existence is to avoid rough situations. That's why
Right.
they are obsessively focusing on gathering power.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for that, because there will be people wondering, who and what these gods were. So you were saying then that they noticed that all this energy was converging universally
Mhm.
right down onto our beautiful planet. So
Yeah.
what happened next then?
So when they realized what the planet was about and what its humanity was about, and that every human body was connected to the entire universe through its own physiology, you know, that the human body was connected to every galaxy, every star, every planet existing in the universe, and that this state of total connection would make these humans the most powerful creators in the universe, channeling the greatest level of concentrated life force. They had an ambivalent reaction of seeing us as a threat to their rule and as an opportunity of actually strengthening their rule. Because they don't rule the entire universe, far from it, very, very, very far from it. But the parts of the universe and the parts of reality where they have dominion, they have that system. They have that system of tricking people into worshiping them and harvesting energy. That's the source of their power. And the thing is that if you have a species whose every little baby being born has access to more power and more life energy than any of you guys, the gods, well, you'd better make sure you'd better make sure that they don't express that ever.
Yeah. So you either control them or kill them.
Yeah, yeah, you want to control them because, you don't want them to have your entire system crash down, and go up in flames. But if you manage to manipulate them and to make them your very own energy source and walking battery, then that is going to be really, really good. Really, really, really good. Because being the focus of human devotion, that is so potent. It is more powerful for them than a heroin trip is for us. And I haven't experienced a heroin trip, but I've heard of it, Well, being worshipped by Earth humans, for them, that's more powerful. And they're totally addicted to it. Totally, totally, totally addicted to it.
And again, it's because, as we've already said, just to re-emphasize the point, it's because these beautiful vessels that we live in are full universal fractals and therefore have access to all the wisdom, power, and knowledge in the whole universe. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
And so, a few 100,000 years ago, best guess about 200,000 years ago, we started to get infiltrated by their system, by their paradigm. And it was very progressive. It was very progressive. There was one wave that came at us after the other, over time. So initially, it wasn't as bad as it is now. Far from it. It started very, very low key, and it got really at its very worst 6,000 years ago. So we've been through the worst level of imposition over the last 6,000 years.
And all this came to light for you when you were at the event in California back in the day, at the live event. Was this when you really began to see all this?
No, actually, this is George shares a lot of that, in his book and in his workshop and presentations. He basically shares how the gods operate and what their system is about, and the fact that many races have been assimilated into that imperial system. And what I discovered in the work I did with some friends who had also done Transcending the God Matrix and followed George for a while, what I discovered is that there is such an absolutely enormous amount of stuff that has been inserted into our subtle bodies and our fields and our environments in order to contain and restrict us, and in order to keep us into illusion and forgetfulness of who we are and what we can do, and in order to harness and hijack our energies and our powers, because that is what is happening to us. We are not using our powers that we don't even realize we have, but other beings are using them, because there are all these races who are part of the empire of the gods, who have come here and who have implemented their own imperial agendas and their own parasitic agendas on us. And as I said, ultimately, the gods are calling the shots. They are the ultimate string pullers in this whole evolution. But all these races, they have put so much stuff into us. It boggles the mind how much there is. And
So you're talking in terms of genetic modification and interference. Is that what you mean?
No, that is the physical level of it.
Okay.
But we have a lot of technical stuff and a lot of black magic stuff that has been placed into our subtle bodies, and we have many subtle bodies. It's not just a few. It's not just etheric, mental, emotional, and spiritual. No, there is much more than that. There are many more subtle bodies and many more fields around us. So over time, they have gone above and beyond. They have inserted an absolutely ridiculous number of layers of that stuff, to make sure we would never escape, and to make sure that they would use our powers to create the reality that they want. I'll give you an example. We have many expressions of healing abilities, many different healing abilities and powers. Okay, so these are harnessed by these systems. They are distorted and inverted to create and spread disease into the world. And our manifestation abilities and our abundance generating powers are used to spread poverty into the world. So these are some examples of how it works.
And I love that you've shared that as a real life example there, Mark, in terms of we are ourselves spreading lack, limitation, and poverty into the world. Because one thing I heard not that long ago, probably in the last sort of 2 to 3 years, and it really struck me because I'd never thought about it, was that, when people say, oh, all this stuff about manifesting and creating your own reality, it's a load of nonsense. And yet almost everybody doesn't realize that they really are the most powerful manifester creator, because they're manifesting everything that they don't want by complaining, moaning, feeling like a victim, feeling hard done by, wishing things were different from a place of fear, lack, and insecurity. And what people don't realize is that these vessels and who we are what's known as a transceiver. So we're transmitting and receiving all the time. And if our frequency is kept low, that is the food source, as you've very eloquently described already, for these so-called gods. As a result of that, we're just constantly creating this low vibe. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. The universe existence just hears this. So the thing that we say we don't want, a lack of money, no romance in our lives, whatever it might be, no opportunity, or, I don't want this mother-in-law, but there she is. You've got her. We are so busy creating everything that we don't want that we don't stop to think, well, most people don't stop to think, hang on a minute, what if I switch this around and actually began to get in the right feeling state, which is even more important than the thought itself, to create what I do want. But I just wanted to bring that up for people listening, because it is such an important point to remember that most of us really are creating everything that we don't want all the time, because we're just constantly thinking about what we don't want. And the universe doesn't hear don't want, it just hears the thing and keeps bringing it and bringing it and bringing it.
Yep. So an important part of this, of all these overlays of imposition, once you start dismantling them, it's a progressive process. You cannot get rid of all of it by snapping your fingers, because there is so much, and because you would be completely in a state of complete chaos if you did that. You would be completely destructured. So it has to be done progressively, and there are some constants in the how would I say, in the way imposition is implemented on us. There are some constants, but the approach is also individualized, meaning that you will be hit from a certain angle that is specific to you, and which is very much dependent on your heritage, your past, how you have evolved. So in my case, they have particularly focused on completely blocking my subtle senses, my subtle perceptions, and making me apathetic. So I've been struggling a lot on overcoming procrastination and inaction over the years, because I've known for a really long time what my calling was, and that it was about teaching, about sharing knowledge and sharing wisdom, and facilitating processes for people to liberate themselves. And so, and that this was entailing speaking and writing and facilitating groups, workshops, all that sort of thing. And I have been postponing and delaying these activities for such a long time, for such a long time, and because of these controls.
I can so relate, Mark, because that's been a big part of that exact same thing has been a big part of my journey as well.
And I could see where my natural gift, natural available, because we have a lot of abilities that are not available to us right away, at this moment, I mean. But I could see very early on what the already available natural aptitudes were for me, which were what I've just explained. And yet, it took me such a long time before I made an actual consistent effort to present them to the world in an articulate and, as I was saying, consistent way. Sticking with it, not doing a one shot and then falling back asleep for a few months or a few years. So so that's where I'm at now. That's where I'm at now, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy to say that that breakthrough has happened, and that I'm helping people with these dolphin coaching sessions that are, of course, the individual, the private sessions that I'm facilitating for people, and with the online course that I have just launched, which is the Human Cetacean Alliance online course that I've had so many wonderful returns with, and the experience of it as I'm creating this course has been so enjoyable and so rewarding and so heartwarming, and and the event that is going to take place very soon in early November that I am so looking forward to. So I'm going to explain. But I want to leave you some room to either ask a question or respond with whatever this is evoking for you before I say more about these activities.
Sure, thank you, Mark. Well, the burning question for me is, how on earth did you end up? Because your energy is wonderful, and everything that you've shared connects the dots with so many other pieces of credible research, knowledge, and wisdom that I've heard over the years in terms of how we've ended up in the situation that we are on this planet, in this system of heinous control, worshipping these fake deities that are parasiting from us. But then again, humanity is awakening. We're getting help from star family who are benevolent. We're getting help from, as George has shared very loudly recently, from the Universal Space Council. But we've also been getting help from our cousins, our relatives, and specifically here from our cetacean family. And they've been helping us for years. If you look back at the wisdom of all the indigenous tribes all over the world, they have been saying for thousands and thousands and thousands of years about our capacity to commune with the non-human intelligence that's indigenous on the well, it's probably not even indigenous, but the non-human intelligence that we live on the planet with. So animals, mammalians, aquatic life, all other forms of life. But given that the cetacean family, people say that they're almost as intelligent as humans. I don't know if I believe that, to be honest with you. I reckon that their level of intelligence and connection to spirit is way above what we are now. But the burning question for me is, given that you wanted to share this wisdom with the world, how did your path cross with our cetacean family cousins?
Okay, so just a word about animal communication first, because that is part of our natural state. We Earth humans used to communicate with all life forms that are present on this planet, animals and plants and minerals. We were communicating with all of them naturally, spontaneously, without effort. So that is part of what has been shut down over time. But there are still people who can. And for most of them, that involves a relearning and an effort to reactivate these capacities. Now, cetaceans, I would say they are an apart category in the animal realm, because I'm posing to I want to express what this is really about in an adequate way without starting a whole conference. So when people say that they are almost as intelligent as humans, in our current diminished state, most cetaceans are more conscious beings than the average human. They have access to a more expanded state of consciousness, and they are expressing a broader spectrum of frequency than the average reduced human can. And in particular, they are really good at expressing and embodying and expressing unconditional love. Particularly unconditional love for us, because you know how animals can be reluctant to interact, wild animals, how reluctant they can be to interact with humans, and that they, most of them will avoid humans. Well, that's only because in their morphogenic field is the awareness of being mistreated, of having really bad interactions with humans. Because people who have been in areas where animals have traditionally been safe report that animals are not afraid of humans. But It's different with cetaceans because even though they have been, and in some areas still are, horribly mistreated by humans, that has never prevented them from being very eager to interact with us and to approach us and to play with us and to rescue us should the need arise. You know, there are so many stories of people being rescued by dolphins and even by whales. They really want to support us and help us, and that is because they have a certain level of awareness. I say certain because, you know, they haven't completely escaped the imposition, but they don't have as much as we have. Far from it. They have much less imposition as we have, and so they have retained a lot more. They have retained a lot more of their natural abilities and natural state. And so they can see how important we are, and they can see how crucial our role is in the evolution of this planet and in the evolution of the entire universe, actually. They're aware of that. And in their relationship with us at this particular moment in time, their primary function is to serve as reminders of what we are capable of by showing us what they are capable of. Because we are capable of much more than they are. But at the moment, because of the intensity of the imposition and diminishment, they can do more than us. They can do more than we can. So there is a very beautiful partnership that they are waiting for. They are waiting for that partnership to be reestablished. And they asked me to be part of that. In the reality management work that I've been doing over the last few years in groups, extended groups and much smaller groups, they were often part of that work. You know, they would show themselves. They would show themselves to help with planetary work. And when I felt cold by this area, you know, this spot on the body of our mother planet, when I felt called to move here and to live here, I came to the seashore in Portugal. I am in front of the ocean right now. I'm in front of the ocean and I go swimming every day. So because of that natural environment that I am exposed to and immersed in, that relationship with the cetaceans has strengthened. And they took a more and more prominent position, and their energies got more and more present for me, so that I am carrying their energies in my feet at all times. They are always with me. And I am connected with their spirits at all times as well. And one day in meditation, I was working with 4 friends. We did so much work together. You know, we were gathering twice a week, and our meetings would last every time at least 5 hours, sometimes 7 hours of both individual and planetary work. And one day, as we were in meditation, a dolphin presented itself to me. And the upper part of its body was emerging from the water, and it was standing in front of me. And the communication I received was that it was inviting me to develop, in the framework of my professional activity, a range of services that would focus on the relationship between humans and cetaceans. And again, it took me a while because I had to overcome the weight of procrastination. But I immediately knew what could be done. I immediately knew that there could be private sessions, that there could be an online course, and that there could be workshops, retreats. And I have developed that offer. And my particular brand of coaching is called Dolphin Coaching because it is their energies are part of these coaching sessions, and the qualities that they express are, how would I put this? What's guiding the unfolding of the coaching sessions. Their wisdom, their love, their speed, their flexibility, their playfulness, their joy, their cooperativeness, their beautiful balance of individuation and community life. So it's unity within diversity and diversity within unity. So these are all the qualities and the traits that are infused in these coaching sessions. And the first run of the Human Cetacean Alliance online course started 3 weeks ago. So there will be other runs in the future, but I am very, very happy with the way it is unfolding. And 2 weeks from now, give or take, actually not give or take, really 2 weeks from now, as we are having this interview, 2 weeks from now will start my first retreat where a group of people will go to physically swim with dolphins for 5 days. Swim with dolphins and watch whales from a boat, but potentially really close to the whales, if they welcome that. And I'm very excited in a quite peaceful way. I'm very excited by this project and by this event, which is going to take place in and around the island of Madeira. So not everyone knows where Madeira is, of course. It is, administratively speaking, it belongs to Portugal. And the original population of the island is Portuguese, of Portuguese descent, because there wasn't anyone on Madeira before the Portuguese arrived. There were probably people before, but there was no trace of them left when the Portuguese arrived. So geographically speaking, it's in the Atlantic. It is at the same latitude as Morocco. So it is off the coast of Morocco, pretty far off. And it is one of the most stunningly beautiful islands in the world. Some people call it another Hawaii. It's a volcanic island. So it is actually the emerged top of a volcano, and it's a really big one. It's 6 kilometers high. I'm not sure how much that is in miles, but yeah, you can look it up if you wish.
I think it's about 3.5 miles. I think.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And It's actually that volcano is actually part of an underwater chain of volcanoes. And volcanic soil is always extremely fertile. And in Madeira, you have that combination of a climate that is really mild all year round. It's always pleasant. And that very fertile soil, which makes that island so lush, so green, and you can grow anything really easily. Anything will grow. And it is called the flower island because any type of flower that exists on Earth has been planted by someone on Madeira. So it exists and can be seen in Madeira. Because of the climate, it's also called the island of eternal spring. But for our purposes, the two really important points are, number one, that it is a massive power spot. So the entire island is one power spot of the planet. So, meaning one place where the energy of the Earth is expressing itself with great intensity. And the second point is that it is the only place in Europe, broadly speaking, where we are allowed to swim with dolphins in the wild. So anywhere else, you'll have to do it behind fences, behind nets or in aquariums, which is pretty sad for the dolphins. It's actually very sad, but even in these kinds of environments, they still love us and they still want to interact with us and support us. But here it's very different. It's meeting and swimming with dolphins in the wild. And there are many tour boat businesses in Madeira that will bring you to watch whales and dolphins. But there are only two on the entire island that will let you swim with the dolphins. So we are working with one of these two in a town called Machico, who's a beautiful. Originally, it was the first capital. It was the first capital of Madeira, so it's where the Portuguese landed, and it's nowadays it's a relatively small town, very human-sized, and you won't have the hustle and bustle of the capital city of Funchal in Machico, and especially in terms of boat traffic. You won't have all these tour operators competing and going after cetaceans. That was the main motivation of these people to go and set up their business in Machico. They didn't want to be a burden to the cetacean population by being part of a crowd of boats. So they have a very good ethics and a very good spirit and approach and practices. So that is why we are doing this with them. And there is a great level of serendipity for me that is part of this event, the way the energy is flowing to make this event happen. Because I realized only recently that I had scheduled it. Well, I have scheduled it in early November, from the 4th to the 8th of November, because it is a sweet spot. It is a sweet spot because it is the tail end of a cetacean watching season. You can still watch cetaceans after that, but not as many. They will be more few and far between in terms of sightings. And it is the beginning of low tourist season. So you will be it's not going to be crowded. You will have ample space to breathe, energetically speaking. So that is why I had chosen the beginning of November. But what I hadn't realized, and that I realized only recently, is that we're going to be right in the middle of the U.S. election, and I believe that's significant because this election is not like any other election, as I believe most of your listeners are aware of. And I am not saying that we are going to influence the outcome of the election. What I am saying is that the two events are part of a convergence of timelines and energies and events that make that time period extremely significant and pivotal. And I expect this retreat to be very pivotal in many ways. And I expect its influence to extend much, much, much further beyond the group of people who are going to participate. So it's going to be a co-creation between us, people participating, the cetaceans we will encounter, and the spirit and consciousness of the island, because islands are islands are people too. So islands have their own spirit and consciousness. They're individuated beings, and of course it will be a co-creation with Mother Earth as well.
Yeah. Oh, Mark, it's so beautiful. And as we said off camera, I so wish that I had the space to come along to it. But one thing I do want to really draw out from this is, everybody wants to swim with dolphins because they feel it here. They don't feel it here, they feel it here. But I think what people probably don't realize on a conscious level is the true impact and importance of that. So given all the wonderful information that you shared about the imposition that we're beginning to really accelerate out of on our beautiful planet and with her consciousness as well, in terms of this wonderful event and retreat that you're organizing, what do you see as the main importance in terms of the connection with our cetacean family, with the island, with our planet, and with the people there, in terms of where the world is going and what we as humanity need to do collectively? Where do you see the importance of this event in terms of how it speaks to where humanity needs to go?
So when we encounter cetaceans, when our energies blend with theirs, what happens is that this alchemical process is reawakening some of our own abilities, particularly healing abilities. And many people experience that after encounters with cetaceans, spontaneous healings, physical, psychological, and spiritual healings. And so very often they are achieving breakthroughs in their lives after these encounters. People can really turn their life around and shift in other directions and achieve a much greater sense of clarity about their purpose in life and really go after it. Really take steps in order to achieve that purpose. And bye-bye procrastination, basically. So that is something that happens quite often. That is the most immediate effect that is being experienced. And yes, the way people respond to the presence of cetaceans, dolphins, and whales is quite unique. Most people are find a sense of wonderment in nature, particularly when they are exposed to species that they don't see very often. But there is something very special about seeing dolphins and whales. People become like children. People become like children. They marvel, they laugh, they cry. It touches them very deeply. Touches them very deeply, and being in the water with these beings is something very special that changes you.
Yeah.
It really changes you, and it changes you forever. You won't be the same after having been with in the water with dolphins and being immersed in their sound fields that resonate through the water. Their clicks and their whistles with which they scan you actually inside and out and
I love,
beam you.
yeah, and I love what you said there about bringing out the child within us, because anyone who knows me will know that this is something that I talk about all the time. That childlike, well, it's not childlike, that child state is actually the essence of who and what we truly are. But the reason that we don't express that is because over time the imposition builds up layers of conditioning that forms this out of control ego that has us believe that we have to be in a certain way. And yet when people are in flow state, which basically means when they're out of their head and into their heart soul essence, i.e. connected to the magic of who and what they truly are, there is this sense of wonderment and wow and what's possible, and this sense of joy and gratitude and inspiration and excitement for life. So I do love that you've shared that, because that is our natural state. And again, anyone who's been around me will know that, that's very much a core element of how I express myself, having
Oh
done
yeah,
so
yeah,
much
yeah.
work to strip back so much of the programming and make peace with it and do the closures and let go of everything. And I also was fascinated when you were saying there about how it affects us in terms of our ability to heal, because I've read a few articles. It's about 3-4 years ago, and they were talking about, it was a place somewhere, I don't know if it was in the Pacific, or it was basically a place where they were helping dolphins in the wild. And there were some of the women there actually had their babies around the dolphins.
Mm.
And every single one of the children, by the time they were 3, 4, 5 years old, every one of them without fail was telepathic.
Yeah,
Really powerfully telepathic. And when
yeah.
they were able to communicate that, they told their parents it had come from the dolphins. The dolphins had shown them when
Yeah.
they were still in the womb and as they were growing up, because they were around them, because their mums were working within the center, that they were communicating with them and they were permanently telepathic. And I just thought, wow, isn't that amazing that it shows, you were saying earlier, how powerful we are inherently, but how much of it has been switched off and shut down. But yet that's a great example of showing us that latent, inherent psionic power, the sort of the non-five senses power that we all have within us, can be brought out so powerfully by bringing around these beautiful, beautiful cousins of ours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And um, it's been known to happen, in groups who were rediscovering in modern times the practice of birthing babies in the water. Most people do that in a pool, but of course, if you can do it in the ocean, it's even better. And it's been seen to happen in groups who were doing that in the ocean, that dolphins would spontaneously come
Wow.
to be part of the birthing process.
That's incredible. Really is incredible.
Now, the second really important aspect is that we're really going to start to cooperate with them consciously to work on our oceans, because there's a lot to be done in order to reestablish the health and balance of the oceans. There is not only physical pollution, there is a lot of energetic interference as well. So there are the old etheric control systems, and there are more modern technological nastiness that has been put underwater. So all of that needs to be taken care of and handled. And they're waiting for us for that matter as well. So that's a really important aspect of the partnership, is to it's to heal the oceans, because the ocean can heal us in many ways, but it needs to have its own healing, and we can be part of that, and we can partner up with the cetaceans for that. You know, the whales play a huge role in the process of toning the waters to restructure the water molecules, and they do that with their song. So yeah, I'm not going to go deeper into that, because I want to be aware of the time frame that we are operating in. So I don't want to take too much time, even though it's really fascinating information.
It is.
Yeah, but that's going to be the other very important aspect of the retreat. It's the active partnership with them. So we'll join forces in guided meditations in order to start this work, this cooperative cleansing work. And of course, because the oceans are such a huge component of the global ecosystems, balance brought to the ocean means balance brought to the land in many ways. And we'll also work for the islands, because the island itself, of course, has been subject to the insertion of harnessing systems, like any considerable power spot has been. So yeah, we'll start dismantling that as well.
Yeah. I love it. And I think one of the things that I really connect with what you're saying, Mark, about all of this is the co-creation between the island, between the humans, between the cetaceans, between the energy, between Mother Sophia herself, between the consciousness of the ocean and all the other life within there as well. I love that it's a co-created and co-authored agreement, not us not you or the expedition going in to impose something. It's something that's created collectively from the heart, with authenticity and with love. And I know from a heart level, that's what makes it so powerful. And I really do love that. So I will share all that. I will share all that in the show notes. And for anybody who's even remotely interested, I highly recommend, because because I would have loved to. But sadly, I have too many other commitments at the moment that don't allow me to. So yeah, you're right, Mark. I could carry on for another hour at least, but yeah, we do need to think about wrapping up. One thing I just very quickly wanted you to touch on was, at the beginning, you said that you had trouble reconciling yourself with the incarnation experience. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I was very. I was experiencing a lot of reluctance to. Well, actually, we all do. We all have a lot of reluctance towards fully inhabiting our physical vehicles. Now, fully integrating our awareness and our focus in these bodies. But for me, it was really, really strong, that reluctance. I really wasn't your typical handyman. you know, most men are, to a certain extent, inclined, at least in my generation, to explore and master that aspect of human activity, and very often they're attracted to mechanical stuff, and I wasn't at all. I wasn't at all. And When I was a little child, I couldn't stand putting my feet in the sand on the beach. I needed to walk on little sandals because I would, I didn't want that contact of my little feet with the sand, with the earth, with the element of earth, which was part of that rejection of physicality.
Right. How fascinating. I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I had my own version of that, which was kind of different how it manifested. But mine was just when I was a kid. I just always had this enormous sense of what am I doing here? Like I
Mhm.
don't belong in this place, and that sense was so strong, so strong. I never ever it was, this is not anything to do with like bullying or mistreatment or anything like that. I just always had this sense of what am I doing on this planet? I don't belong here. Everywhere I went, I just had this sense, and I understand now where that came from because none of us are actually from here originally. But yeah, it's fascinating how that manifests for people in life,
Well,
particularly people who open to self connection.
well, it's not just that, it has to do with the intensity of the imposition as
Yeah,
well, and the fact that the more aware we are, and the more experienced we are as beings, I believe, the more reluctant we could be to expose ourselves to that level of tyranny and roughness.
yeah, 100%. That's a really good point. Actually, I was probably picking up on that. Well, not probably. I would have been picking up on that as a child without actually realizing that that's what I was that's what I was picking up on. So yeah, great point. So we're at the very end, and as I always do, oh, go on.
Um,
Is there something
yeah,
else you'd like to share?
yeah. For people who would be interested in the retreat, because we are really close now. We are really close to the start of the event. If that is something that interests you, I really strongly encourage you to not wait to contact me. Contact me as soon as possible, and I will share all the relevant information with you, and then you can decide whether you want to come.
Brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, just to wrap up, three quick fire questions for you, Mark.
Great.
The very first one is well, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but what are you most excited about right now?
Oh, yes, you knew the answer to this. Yeah. Next
Yeah,
question.
absolutely. Next question. So here's what I want you to do. Imagine that a time machine has just landed in front of you straight after our conversation. You feel drawn to get in it. You get in, the doors close, hear the noise, you can feel yourself traveling through time. You hear it land, the doors open, and there's 12-year-old Mark stood in front of you. What two pieces of advice would you give that little boy?
I would tell him that even when he finds himself in difficult situations in the future, he will never be alone, even though it might feel like it. He will never be alone. He will always have support. And I would also tell him that everything he's going through is for a higher purpose, and that it's all going to be well in the end.
Oh, that's so beautiful, brother. So beautiful. And finally, what's the number one thing that's wrong with the world right now? And what one thing would you do to solve it?
Where do I start?
I know, right? You can only pick one thing. And what one thing would you do to solve it?
Definitely the mind control. The mind control. To solve it, we have to remove the infrastructures that are generating it. So that's exactly what I'm doing, what we are doing, what we are
Yeah.
working for. And yeah, soon we are going to be confronted with a more sophisticated version of it, which is a consciousness control, which is a deeper level, because consciousness is like expanded mental energy, like universal mental energy. So yeah, we are going to enter into a phase of human evolution that's going to be short-lived, but that will be much lighter than what we have now, much lighter. The really dark, heavy aspects of the imposition will be gone. So there will still be imposition, but it will be much less obvious and more sophisticated. So yeah, it will be a new set of problems, but I'd say in a way more tricky, but also much less unpleasant, much less unpleasant to deal with.
Yeah. And when people say to me, what can I do? First thing I always say is get off your phone, stop watching social media, stop scrolling, and stop watching the TV news because it's nonsense designed to poison your brain. Get out in nature, leave the phone behind, put your feet on the grass and meditate. Reconnect to yourself and heal your trauma. I know I said that's one thing. That's actually about 10 things. But they're all rolled into one. Because that is the most important. The most important thing is unplug yourself from the so-called news because it's designed to keep you frightened, terrorized, stuck, and helpless, and in need of a savior. When the only savior you need, is the one that's looking back at you in front of the mirror every single time you catch your own reflection. But we've got to do the inner work, and we've got to heal our traumas and let go of the things that create our fears and insecurities. And there's a million ways to do that, but. Anyway, Marc, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. I will get this published straight away for anybody to catch anybody who leans into this conversation and is interested in coming to the retreat. Again, I wish I could do so myself, but I can't wait to hear about it once it's over. So thank you very much for your time, brother. Thank you very much for the wonderful explanation that you gave at the beginning about the imposition and the state of the world. It was really powerful for me just to hear all that and hear different elements of it from your perspective, and for doing everything that you're doing in the world to help people heal, to help humanity heal, and to co-create this wonderful relationship, rebuild this wonderful relationship, not just with our cetacean family, but with ourselves and with the planet as well. So I really do highly commend you for doing the work that you're doing and letting go of all the things that have kept you stuck, especially the procrastination, because again, it's something I can relate to so powerfully. So I really want to celebrate you for that, brother. So thank you for sharing your time with the Superliminal audience. It really has been a pleasure. And for everybody watching, as usual, please do subscribe, share, comment, like, and follow. And again, for anyone who's got the slightest bit of interest in what Marc's just shared about the retreat, I'll leave his contact details on the show notes. So do get in touch with him immediately if that's something that you can feel here is going to be right for you in the next step of your journey. But again, for now, Marc, thank you ever so much. It's been an absolute joy.
For me too, and I want to express my gratitude too, Franco, for the invitation and for the beautiful way you are conducting this interview and the other interviews as well. Because as I told you, your heart really shines through in a very beautiful way, and you are really masterful at that interview process. Not many people are, but you are spontaneously masterful because it comes from your heart. That is actually why. And I appreciate your invitation and your support very much.
Oh, brother, thank you so much. That is just really magical to feel. And yeah, it's conversations like this that inspire me to keep going, because the feedback I get from them is just wonderful. So I really appreciate your beautiful, heartfelt words. It means the world. So thanks again, Marc. Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in. And we will see you next time.
All right. With great pleasure.
Bye.